NZ Craft Beer TV hits Blenheim.
Geoff, thanks for coming along to have a bit of a chat, and maybe you can tell us a bit about, I guess, how you got to this point, how you got to New Zealand.
It's been a while. I think I've been writing here now since 1995, and writing about beer in 1995 was a little bit different to how it is today. And I first came to New Zealand on holiday in 1990 and actually met the lady who's now my wife, and that's probably the reason I'm back in New Zealand now, actually. I was working for the BBC at the time, so I had the money to come and visit such far-flung places as New Zealand. Really fell in love with the place, and in 1995 came and lived out here, and then thought, now what am I going to do for a living? The beer over here was interesting, to say the least, to my English palate. A lot fizzier, a lot colder, a lot blander, but there were some good beers to be found, and decided that there was a story to be told here, and that people were getting really excited about wine in New Zealand, but nobody was talking about beer. And if they were, it was in a quite a derogatory way. And I thought, well, somehow we need to sort of set that right, and I think people should start getting excited about the flavours in good beer. Seems to me the world of craft beer is a lot bigger in New Zealand now. People are getting fired up, excited about good beer, and that's the way it should be.
So, I mean, I guess having been here for 16 years, you've seen a lot of changes happening. Is there something that you see as being quite unique to New Zealand craft brewing that you don't see sort of wherever else you've travelled?
I think clearly New Zealand hops are just different. I mean, that big grassy, fresh, herbaceous character, and the way brewers are experimenting with different styles, and then trying it with the Kiwi hop, sort of bending the style, skewing the style away from its original flavours. And where before people felt that it wasn't hip, it certainly wasn't macho to drink something other than one of those big brands that was associated with a rugby team. We're now seeing we've come to the time where it's now actually quite hip to turn up at somebody's house with a six-pack of something that nobody's ever seen before. And that to me is absolutely great. That's where the wine guys were 5 to 10 years ago. I think it dates back to the 1850s, and it was originally a malt house. It's actually Marlborough's oldest commercial building. It's a really interesting building. It's been many things. It's been an ice cream factory. I think it was a warehouse at one point, and it was the original home of Grove Mill Winery as well. But it's good to see it back in its original and, from my point of view, most interesting role in dispensing good beer. And it's a lovely place to come and sit and have a few beers on a warm summer's afternoon.
And there's a brewery out the back too.
There is indeed, yeah. Renaissance, great name, run by a couple of guys from San Diego, California, and they've stepped up and they've come out with a range of pretty exciting, pretty big beers. Andy Duke the brewer, and his brother-in-law, Brian Thiel, who's a motor mechanic, highly qualified motor mechanic. So you've got the brewer, and you've got the guy that can fix the brewery when it goes wrong. And they're a good team, and they like working with each other, and they produce some pretty big beers.
And it's not only Renaissance that brews that up here. There's another.
That's right. We've now got a young Dane, Soren Eriksen. He was travelling around looking for a home, found himself a good woman, and found himself a brewery, and he's been a home brewer, and he's scaled up his home brew production, and he's producing what I regard as some of the most interesting beers in the country. Doing a little bit what you've been doing, Luke, over the years, producing, let's try a batch of something really interesting and different, see how it turns out, see how the public responds to it. If it doesn't respond well, let's flag it and try something different. Or maybe if they do like it, well, we'll scale it up and brew some more of it. And that's pretty much the way it's going with Soren, except seems to me that everything he brews people seem to like. I know I do.
Well, it's the time for us to go and maybe see if we can find someone at the brewery.
Yeah, go check out the brewery.
Let's do it, eh?
Cool, let's do it.
Great.
Thanks a lot, Geoff.
Cheers.
It's been a pleasure.
Cool. Cheers. Cheers.
So here we are sitting in the Malthouse tower of the Olde Malthouse with Soren Eriksen. You're the one-man band behind 8 Wired Brewing.
That's correct, yes.
So that's not a New Zealand accent I'm hearing.
It's Danish. It's Danish.
So
yeah.
How did a Danish guy get to Blenheim and brew awesome beer?
About 7 years ago, I met a girl from New Zealand, and we traveled around for a bit.
Where did you meet her?
I met her in Bangladesh. Her parents were living in Bangladesh, so she was over there visiting, and I was doing an internship for the Danish embassy in Bangladesh. Yeah, we met there and hooked up again later, and yeah, here we are 7 years later, and we're married now. We've got a kid, 4 months old daughter. We traveled around for a bit. We went to Australia first. I was in Melbourne and Perth doing a master's degree in biochemistry, and it was in Perth I started homebrewing. When he got me a little homebrew kit, a Cooper's kit. I kept making a few and figured out how to make them better, and it's the same old story really for all homebrewers. Eventually I started playing around with some grains and some hops and all grain. I decided to start up a brewery somehow, but I didn't have any experience in commercial brewing, so I contacted all the small breweries in New Zealand to get like an internship kind of thing going. And Renaissance got back to me and said that I was most welcome to come down for 3 months or so and wash some kegs and help them mash in and clean the tanks and stuff and what else had to be done. And I said sweet, so we came down for about 3 months. Well, that was the plan 2.5 years ago, and we're still here. We sort of fairly quickly realized that starting up a brew pub and having all the gear and everything was gonna be quite the task, both financially and time-wise. So we decided to contract brew instead. And Renaissance happened to have some spare capacity and they needed a brewer, so they hired me as a brewer and let me brew my own beer on the system.
Fantastic. So there's something else that you also get into that I've read about in the newspaper and online to do with making a bit of money.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what's the story with that?
Well, I play a bit of poker.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's what you're referring to.
Yeah.
I've been lucky enough to in the last 2 years win the New Zealand Championship. I'm going down there again this April, and it's very unlikely, but who knows? Maybe I'll win some more money.
Yeah. So maybe a brewery might be on the cards if you can win a couple more
Yeah,
times.
maybe.
And in terms of your beers, I mean, you're doing some pretty awesome beers, some big flavored beers. Is this because you're a fan of this style, these type of beers?
Well, yeah. I mean, I always try to maximize the flavor in the beer that I make. Have as much flavor, but still having the drinkability and the balance. That's basically every time I make a beer. That's my goal.
Fantastic. Well, it's been a pleasure chatting, Soren, and
Likewise.
keep doing the amazing beers. I think they're very much an inspiration for a lot of New Zealand beer drinkers and beer brewers as well. Thanks a lot.
Cheers.
Soren. Thanks very much.
Thank you.